You're already awake when the bugle calls. Not that you slept much last night. How could you? The ground beneath you is frozen solid, and your threadbare blanket did little more than remind you of how warm things used to be. Your limbs are stiff, your breath fogs in the air like smoke, and your nose has gone so numb it feels like someone else's face. Somewhere beyond your closed eyelids, the first dull light of morning is beginning to seep through the colourless. Haze, not quite sunrise, more like the world is just remembering how to wake up, and so are you. You try to sit up, and your back protests. It feels like your spine has been replaced with a fence post. You grumble softly, not out of anger, just the quiet, involuntary sound a human makes when life is, well, cold. You're in Napoleon's Grande Armée, Russia, 1812, and it's not going well. The campaign started with glory in your eyes. You had marched across Europe wearing a uniform you once admired in the mirror. France was proud. You were proud. You were going to bring civilization eastward, help the emperor humble the Russian bear, and maybe even come home with a few medals, or at least a story to impress the girls at the inn. Now you can barely feel your fingers. You aren't sure where your boots end and your toes begin. And the girl at the inn feels like someone from another life, a warmer one. You reach for your pack. It's stiff with frost and smells like damp wool, scorched leather, and body odour aged in ice. You fumble through it by feel. The light still hasn't found its way all the way down into your camp, and pull out your last piece of hard bread. It's less of a meal and more of a gesture. Crunch. It echoes like biting a rock, but it's something. Your breath rises in a cloudy plume as you chew. Around you, other soldiers are stirring, slowly, mechanically, like ancient statues groaning back to life. There's coughing, the scrape of metal, the soft curses of men waking to the same realization you had. It's another day, and you're still here. Your regiment is huddled in what used to be a village, if you can call it that. Most of the buildings are abandoned, stripped for firewood days ago. A few collapsed under the snow. Others stand like haunted skeletons, blackened by soot, windows shattered. You and your comrades claimed what shelter you could. Corners, barns, sheds, anything to get out of the wind. Last night you slept in the shell of a chapel. The altar was gone, so were the pews, but the stones still remembered warmth, just faintly. A young voice grunts beside you. It's Julian, the drummer, boy, 16 maybe, or 15. It's hard to tell in this light. His face is hidden behind a scarf that's frozen stiff with his own breath. He gives you a little nod. Neither of you speaks. What would you even say? Still not dead? Better luck. Next morning, at least the lice are warm. No, silence is easier. You finish your crust of bread and rub your hands together. The friction brings back just enough feeling to remind you how much it hurts. One of your gloves is missing. You gave it to a limping grenadier 2 nights ago. You told him you'd find another. You didn't. The call comes again. The same bugle. It means one thing. Time to move. You sigh through your nose and get to your feet. Every joint resists you're young, but you don't feel it. Your muscles ache like old rope left out in rain. But you stand. Because standing is survival. Because staying in one place means freezing in it. Your breath fogs out before you as you glance toward the others. Officers move among the men, shouting in that half-hoarse, half-frozen tone of voice that doesn't carry far, but still feels like it cuts. You catch a few fragments. Pack up. We march north, 2 leagues before midday. You grimace. North? Still, you'd thought, hoped, maybe today would be different. Maybe today the order would be to stop, to build proper fires, to rest or retreat. But no, the campaign goes on. You sling your pack over your shoulder. It thumps against your back like a bag of wet stones. Your musket follows, heavier than you remember. But you remember everything being heavier out here. Foot by foot, the line assembles. There's no pomp, no ceremony, just the sound of boots over crusted snow and breath wheezing into scarves. You glance at the horizon. The sky is pale, a thin, washed-out grey like old linen. Snow falls in the lightest possible way, more like dust than flakes. You squint into it, trying to imagine what waits ahead. Another forest, another village, another night spent shaking in a barn next to 3 other men. All of you dreaming of hot stew that doesn't exist. And still, you march. Your boots crunch over frozen mud. The landscape unfolds around you in silence. Skeletal trees, fences half sunken into snowbanks, the occasional abandoned sled. Now and then you pass something that used to be alive. A frozen horse, a shattered cart, a body. You try not to look too closely at the bodies. The cold preserves them too well. Too human. So you keep your gaze forward. Eyes on the shoulders of the man in front of you. One foot, then the other. Like breathing, but with pain. You pass a small hill and catch a sudden gust of wind, sharper than a blade. It cuts through every layer you're wearing and steals the heat right out of your bones. You stagger slightly, mutter something under your breath, and keep going. No one laughs, no one comments. Everyone is too cold for jokes. After a time, minutes, hours, you reach a clearing. Someone near the front raises a hand. The line halts. You feel a strange sensation, the absence of motion. Your body almost rocks with the leftover momentum. A quiet command passes down the line. Break for rations. You don't have any. You sit anyway. A few men dig into their packs. One finds a scrap of cheese. Another unwraps a bit of meat that's gone stiff with fat. Julian has a bit of dried apple, and he offers you a bite. You take it without a word and chew slowly. It tastes like wood and sugar. Your mind drifts back to France, to warmth, to wine. You blink slowly. The cold has softened into something almost hypnotic. You're sitting, not marching. You're not warm, but you're not moving either. That's something. You close your eyes for just a second, and the snow keeps falling. The world is quieter now, not silent. No, there's still the low murmur of boots shifting in snow, the gentle jangle of a loose belt buckle, the occasional cough muffled in a scarf. But the kind of quiet that spreads through your chest like cold water. Stillness and exhaustion, that thick, unspoken kind of fatigue that hangs off the men around you like another layer of clothing. You blink awake again, not realizing you dozed off. You hadn't meant to. But out here, sleep is sneaky. It comes in slivers, in moments, stolen between orders and aches. You never sleep long, never sleep well, just enough to make waking up hurt a little more. The clearing is unchanged, pale and grey. Snow swirls like ash from an invisible fire. The air is dense with that particular cold, the kind that sits behind your eyes and underneath your tongue, as if even your thoughts are freezing. Someone further down the line shifts their weight. It's a signal, the kind your body responds to without thinking. You rise, slow and stiff, brushing the snow from your knees. Your bones complain, but your legs obey. They have to. That's how it works out here. Movement means warmth, or at least less cold. The officers begin moving again, and so does the line, marching again, always. You fall back into rhythm, not a rhythm of energy, but survival. Left, right, left, right. The sound of your boots becomes a strange kind of heartbeat. The breath in your scarf forms a tiny cave of warmth that clings to your face. You don't want to speak. You don't want to think. You just want to keep moving. You pass a shattered farmhouse. Its roof has collapsed in the middle, like it gave up halfway through winter. The walls are scorched, maybe by battle, maybe by retreating soldiers trying to scavenge firewood. Hard to say. You don't stop to wonder. You just march past it, like you marched past the last 24. There will be more. A thin grove of trees emerges in the distance, skeletal and black against the endless grey. Crows sit among the branches. Not many, but enough to notice. They don't caw. They just watch. You don't look at them for long. Julian is beside you again, tugging his scarf tighter. He's stopped trying to talk, and you're grateful. Even words feel like work now. He coughs once, dry and sharp, and winces as he walks. His drum hangs limply from a strap across his chest, silent. He hasn't played it in days. There's no one left who wants to hear. You cross a shallow stream, or what used to be one. Now it's just a thin ribbon of ice coated in fresh powder. The bridge has collapsed, but it doesn't matter. Everyone just trudges across, boots crunching on frozen water. One man slips and nearly falls, arms pinwheeling, but he catches himself and laughs. No one joins in, but for a second, for just a second, the absurdity of it makes you smile. Snowflakes gather on your eyelashes. You blink them away. They sting, but in a gentle way, like the cold is kissing you just hard enough to remind you it's real. The wind picks up. You wrap your coat tighter. It's French military issue, but the buttons are long gone, replaced with a crude bit of string you tied around your middle days ago. It helps a little. Everything helps a little. Your socks are 2 different lengths. Your belt is notched. Wrong. Your left boot is leaking, but you're still walking. Ahead, an officer slows down, turning to wave his arm in a wide, deliberate arc. Another signal. Camp, someone mutters. You don't cheer. You don't speed up. You just walk. You arrive in another frozen village. Or what's left of one. 3 houses, half a barn, and a scattering of wood planks half buried in snow. The buildings are empty, of course, looted, abandoned. The windows stare at you like hollow eyes. You choose the barn. It's barely standing, but it has walls, and that's more than you had last night. Inside, it smells like mold and damp straw and old smoke. The roof leaks in one corner, forming a frozen puddle that looks like broken glass. You find a patch of straw that isn't completely soaked and claim it. Julian collapses beside you, with a sigh that's more emotion than sound. He curls into himself like a question mark, trying to find warmth in his own spine. You rub your hands together, blow into them. The warmth evaporates before it reaches your fingers. You think about fire. You think about soup. You think about a tavern back in Paris, dimly lit and full of clinking glasses. You imagine what it would be like to be warm again. Truly warm. The kind of warmth you can stretch into. The kind that melts the tired parts of you. You shake the thought away. It hurts more than the cold. Someone near the doorway starts gathering kindling. The sound of twigs snapping feels louder than it should. Then comes the flint, the strike, the faint scratch, snap, scratch. Nothing. Again. Snap! Snap! You watch the man's hands. He's trying to light a fire with fingers too stiff to feel anything. His knuckles are red and swollen. He looks at the tinder like it's something he no longer understands. Then, finally, a spark. It catches. The flame is small, desperate, flickering like a frightened animal. But it lives. And as it grows, men draw closer. You and Julian scoot forward, slowly, reverently. The fire doesn't warm the room, not really, but it changes the air. You stare into it, and for the first time all day, you think about home. Your mother's hands, dusted with flour, the sound of bells in the street, the worn leather of your father's chair. Warm things, real things, the fire, crackles. It's almost hypnotic. You can feel the snow melting from your boots. It runs down into your soles and makes your socks damp, but you don't care. It's proof that the fire is doing something. Someone passes around a tin cup. Inside is a bit of weak broth, mostly just hot water with flavour from something boiled days ago. You take a sip. It scalds your tongue. You almost laugh. You don't, but you think about it. Julian falls asleep sitting up. His head tilts forward until his chin rests on his chest, his hat drooping to one side. You look at him for a while. Then let your own eyes drift shut, just for a minute, just while the fire burns, the wind howls outside. But inside there is this, straw and smoke and silence and sleep. When you wake again, the fire is almost gone. Just a few red-orange coals huddling in the centre like the last guests at a party that ended hours ago. The barn is still, quiet in that particular way only winter knows. A hush so deep you can hear every breath, every shift in straw, every crack of the timber beams overhead. You're lying on your side, cheek pressed against your rolled-up coat, which has become both pillow and shield. Julian is snoring softly beside you. Not the loud kind, just the rhythmic exhale of someone young and tired enough to forget he's sleeping on frozen dirt. You stretch slightly, wincing as you do. Your back feels like it's been hammered flat. The warmth from the fire didn't make it all the way to your corner. You can still feel your toes, but just barely. Like remembering the feel of a dream, rather than living it. You sit up slowly, brushing straw from your coat. You're grateful you woke before the officer's call this time. It's always better when you have a few quiet minutes to yourself, before the shouting begins. Before the march starts again, you wrap your scarf around your face. The cloth is stiff and smells of smoke and salt and something else, maybe sour sweat, but it's better than wind on skin. You check your pack, still too light, still missing too much. But nothing's been stolen. That's something. You stand. It hurts. Of course it hurts. But you move anyway. Outside, the village is bathed in that strange, colourless light of early dawn. The kind where shadows barely exist, and everything looks like it's been washed in flour. The snow has thickened overnight. You can hear it crunch beneath your boots, hear the brittle squeak of it compacting as you step. All around you, the army is stirring. Quietly. No cheers, no songs, just men doing what must be done. You see a group gathered around a fire further down, feeding it with what looks like pieces of a broken chair. Nearby, someone ties a cloth around a bleeding foot. Frostbite. Probably bad. You don't look too long. The officers begin barking orders again. Routine, familiar. Form up. Shoulders straight. We move in 10. You sigh quietly through your nose and join the line. The march begins with that now familiar sound. Thousands of boots over brittle earth. It's not even a road anymore, not really. Just a path worn through snow, marked by the bodies of the men and horses who didn't make it this far. You step over what might have once been a wheel. From a wagon, probably. Shattered, half buried in a drift. Useless like so many things now. You look around as you walk. The landscape has changed. It's flatter here, wide and open and wind-swept. Not much to see. Just a few lonely trees, spaced too far apart to feel like a forest. Their branches stretch out like black hands clawing at a sky that has no colour, no depth, just cloud and grey. You pull your scarf tighter. A flake of snow lands on your eyelash and melts there, burning cold. Somewhere up ahead, a horse whinnies, sharp and sudden. It's a sound that once might have meant cavalry, or supply, or hope. Now it just makes you flinch, because horses don't last long out here either. You pass another cart, broken, abandoned. Its wheels locked in ice, its bed half full of snow-covered sacks. Someone must have left it days ago, or maybe hours. Time's hard to track now. The sky doesn't change much, and every mile feels the same as the last. You glance down. Beside the road, if you can still call it that, is a bundle of something wrapped in cloth. Not moving. You don't stop. No one does. It's not cruelty. It's exhaustion. You've learned to look past the things that don't move. Hours pass like that. Walking, breathing, not thinking. You don't know if it's mid-morning or noon. You don't ask. The line of soldiers ahead of you stretches forward like a snake, half asleep in the snow. You follow it. Julian stumbles. His foot catches on a root or a stone, or maybe nothing at all. You grab his arm without thinking, steady him. He gives a small, grateful nod, cheeks red with cold. He's shivering. You are too. The cold is deep now. Not on the skin, that's easy. You can wrap skin. No, this is in your core, in your ribs. You feel like you're made of ice and cloth and fatigue. And even your thoughts are starting to slow. You wonder quietly, what it would be like to just stop, to sit, to sleep, to melt into the snow and not get up again. But you don't, because you're still moving, because Julian is beside you, because the others are still walking. And somehow that's enough. At midday, or something like it, the column halts again. Officers are pointing to the side of the road, ordering units to split and fan out. Someone mentions a nearby village. Shelter. Maybe food. You don't celebrate, you just follow. The village is barely more than 5 houses and a windmill. The roofs are heavy with snow. The doors hang open. One building looks like it burned last. Weak, the frame is blackened and jagged like broken teeth. You step inside what might have once been a baker's shop. It's cold, empty. There's a stove in the corner. The chimney still stands. Julian moves toward it instinctively, brushing ashes with his sleeve, checking for anything that might burn. You help. There's a broken stool. You snap off a leg. Someone else hands you a piece of fence post. It's enough. The fire takes a long time to start. Everything is damp, but eventually, warmth, flickering and small, but real. You sit close. The warmth doesn't reach your feet, but your hands begin to tingle. Pins and needles. Blood returning. You welcome the sting. Outside, the wind groans against the walls. You can hear it breathing through cracks in the wood, whispering like a ghost outside your door. Someone passes around a strip of dried meat. You tear it slowly with your teeth, chewing longer than you need to. Not to savor it. There's nothing to savor, but just to stretch the moment. Julian starts humming something. A tune. Simple. French. You remember it from before. Before Russia. Before the cold. Before this war. The others don't stop him. The fire pops. You lean back against the wall, eyes closed, just for a minute. Your limbs are heavy. Your breath slows. Outside, the storm begins to rise. But in here, there is stillness. There is the beat of fire, the faint hum of a boy's voice, the warmth of your own breath in your scarf. And rest. You wake to darkness. Not the soft, sleepy kind that wraps around your eyes like a blanket, but a thick, suffocating black that feels pressed against your face. Your breath puffs out warm inside your scarf, and for a moment you wonder if your eyes are even open. You blink. Yes, they're open. It's just that dark. The fire has died down to a few dull embers. A pale orange glow, buried beneath grey ash, flickering like a heart that's almost done beating. Around you, the silence is complete. Even the wind outside has stilled. You sit up slowly. Your back cracks as it straightens. Your knees protest. But somehow the quiet helps. It's the kind of stillness that's so total, even your own movements feel loud. You shift your weight and glance at Julian. He's curled beside you, still, asleep, his drum cradled like a blanket. You don't wake him. You sit in the half-dark and let your eyes adjust. The room, if you can still call it that, looks softer now. The broken shelves, the torn curtain fluttering near the window, the frost blooming across the inside of the glass like white ferns. You can't feel your fingers. Again, but at least your breath is warm. You lean forward and prod the coals gently with a stick. A few sparks fly, hopeful, then fade. You toss in the last of the stool leg. It smoulders, but doesn't catch. You sit back again and wait. The storm, it seems, hasn't ended. It's simply changed its shape. You can hear the snow now. Soft flakes hitting the roof above you. A constant, almost lazy patter, like grains of rice falling on cloth. You close your eyes for a second and just listen. It could almost be peaceful, if not for everything else. A knock, not loud, just a few quick taps, knuckles against wood. You startle slightly, then remember where you are. One of the other soldiers opens the door just enough to slip through. He's coated in snow, his shoulders dusted in white like flour on a baker's. "Apron, orders," he says simply, his voice quiet. "We move again by dawn. You don't even sigh anymore." Julian stirs, muttering something in his sleep. You reach over, touch his shoulder gently. His eyes flutter open. "Already?" he whispers. You nod. He groans, not dramatically, not childishly. Just the soft, disappointed sound of someone too young to be this tired. You begin packing your things. It doesn't take long. You've learned not to unpack too much. Your pack is lighter than ever. Half of it is just memories now. The scent of home on a scrap of cloth, a dented spoon, a single wool sock you can't bring yourself to throw away. You sling your musket over your shoulder and step into the snow. It's deeper than yesterday. The whole world feels muffled. Sound, light, even time. Your footsteps sink into the powder, and you can't hear them land. Around you, others are assembling, moving slowly through the white. Officers murmur. No one raises their voice anymore. It wastes too much breath. The line forms, and the march begins again. You press forward, head down, eyes half-lidded against the wind. The snow falls in fine sheets now, angled and sharp. It gets in your ears, your nose, your collar. It tries to slip between your scarf and your skin. You try not to shiver. You fail. Each footstep feels heavier than the last. The cold grabs hold of your knees and elbows and doesn't let go. Your breath burns in your lungs, but you keep moving. There's no road now, just direction. Forward. You pass a tree stripped, bare of bark. A landmark? Maybe. Or just another thing frozen in place. A crow sits on one of its branches, feathers puffed for warmth, eyes beady and still. It watches you go. You don't watch back. The men ahead of you are quiet. No one talks about where you're going anymore. That stopped days ago. Now you just follow. The man in front of you follows the one ahead of him, and so on, until it reaches some officer somewhere who swears he knows the way. You march. Julian is still beside you. He hums sometimes under his breath, but more often now he just walks. You can hear him breathing, shallow and quick. He limps a little more than yesterday. You don't ask about it. There's a moment when the wind breaks, just for a few seconds, and the world opens up around you. A clearing, a field wide and flat and blank. The snow here hasn't been touched. It stretches like a sheet, smooth and clean. It's almost beautiful. But then someone stumbles. A man in the line ahead. He falls to one knee, tries to stand, can't. Two others stop. One pulls at his arm. The other checks his pack. but the fallen man just lowers his head and stays there. Eventually, they move on, and so do you. The snow closes over his shape like he was never there. You don't look back. Later, how much later, you're not sure. You stop. Another village. Another cluster of chimneys poking from snow-covered roofs. It's hard to tell if anyone ever lived here, or if they just left in time. Your group splits again. Some move toward barns, others into half-collapsed homes. You and Julian find a cellar beneath a burned-out building. The door creaks, the steps groan, but it holds. Inside, it smells like earth and smoke, and something faintly sweet. Old fruit, maybe, or mold. But it's dry and quiet. And for tonight, that's enough. You light another fire, this time with dry straw and a bit of wax paper someone found in a drawer upstairs. The flame jumps quickly. The warmth is sharp, almost unfamiliar. You sit close. Julian removes his boot. His sock comes with it, stiff and wet and reeking of days-old damp. He winces. His foot is raw, mottled purple and red. You don't say anything. There's nothing to say. You offer him a strip of cloth. He wraps it quietly, without complaint. You both sit in silence for a long time. At one point you ask what day it is. Julian shrugs, then you ask what month. He says, "Still November?" You both laugh, just once, quietly, then you both fall silent. Again. The fire crackles, the storm hisses against the walls above. And beneath it all, a dull warmth begins to grow, not just from the flames, but from the act of not moving, from stillness, from being inside. You lean back against the stone wall. The cold outside feels far away now. You can still hear it, but it's not in your bones, not yet. You close your eyes and let the sleep come. You don't wake to the sound of shouting, not this time. Instead, it's the gentle creak of the floor above you, the wooden beams of what was once a house, now barely more than a skeleton. They shift with wind and snow, groaning softly like an old man in his sleep. It's not a warning, just a reminder that the world up there still exists, still moves. You open your eyes slowly. It's dim in the cellar. The fire is long gone. Just a smear of black ash, a faint scent of smoke clinging to the stones. But somehow you're not frozen. You shift your shoulders and feel the stiffness settle back in. Your arms, legs back. They ache, but they obey. That's a victory, in its own quiet way. Julian is still asleep, his back against the opposite wall. His foot is bandaged, his scarf tucked up to his nose. Only his eyes show, closed in deep, exhausted rest. You leave him be. There's no call, yet no orders, no urgency. So you sit for a moment, just sit and breathe. The stillness of the cellar wraps around you like a thin layer of wool. Not warm, exactly, but soft, muted. The world is muffled here, not silent, but distant. You can hear the faint rustle of snow above, the moan of wind pushing through cracks in the burned frame overhead. And you listen. You imagine the snow drifting past blackened beams, falling in soft curls through holes in the roof, settling, gently on floors once swept by hands long gone. A home once, a life, now just shelter, a place to close your eyes without freezing. You rise slowly. Your boots make no sound as they cross the stone. Your fingers brush the wall for balance, and the stone beneath your palm is cold and damp. Familiar now. Everything is cold and damp. You reach the steps and climb carefully, avoiding the ones that creak too much. Above, the world is still grey, still snowing, still Russia. You step out into the quiet remains of the village. It looks almost peaceful in the morning haze. Houses blanketed in white, footprints soft and already fading. Smoke rises from 2 or 3 chimneys. You're not the only ones who found shelter here last night. A figure trudges past you. A cavalryman, you think, though his horse is nowhere to be seen. His uniform is faded, cloak crusted with frost. He nods at you. You nod back. No words. Another figure tends a tiny fire outside a collapsed shed. The flames flicker, barely alive, surrounded by stones to keep the snow off. He's holding something. Over the heat, a strip of cloth or meat or both. It smells like burning wool. Or maybe it's just memory. You turn back toward the cellar and slip inside again. Julian is awake now, rubbing his eyes. His foot looks worse, swollen, angry. But he doesn't mention it. He just asks, "Do we move today?" You shrug. Neither of you knows. So you eat what you have, a crust of bread, so stale you have to soak it in a bit of snowmelt to chew. He finds a wedge of cheese in his pack. You share it. It's gone in seconds, but you both act like it helped. Afterwards, he leans against the wall again, and you sit beside him. You say nothing. Sometimes silence is the best kind of company. Eventually, a voice calls out from the street above. "Ready to march!" It's not shouted, not anymore. Just said loud enough to hear. You rise again, wrap your scarf again, lift your pack again. The pain returns like a familiar rhythm. Julian limps more than yesterday, but he walks. That's all that matters. The cellar is left behind. Another shelter among dozens you've used and forgotten. You rejoin the column, and you begin to walk. The snow is deeper now. It pulls at your boots like thick mud. You lift each leg with effort. The man in front of you limps too. A lot of them do. The army looks like a parade of ghosts now. Tattered, tired, faces hidden, steps unsure. And yet, it moves ahead. The road, such as it is, dips downward into a wooded stretch. Trees line both sides. Not dense, but enough to block the wind. Enough to feel different. You feel it as soon as you enter. A hush, a calm, and something else. Smoke, not campfire. Smoke. This is heavier, older, like something large had burned recently. You glance at Julian. He smells it too. The trees thin suddenly, and the sight stops you. Before you, or what's left of the column, is a ruin. A village, but not like the others. This one hasn't been abandoned gently. It's been erased, burned to the foundations, walls blackened to nothing, beams collapsed and buried in soot. Charred skeletons of houses poke through snow like bones. The air smells like ash and iron and silence. You move through it slowly. No one speaks. Boots crunch over cinders and soft snow. The ground beneath you shifts, not with mud, but with soot. It coats your trousers, clings to your coat. In the middle of what must have been the square, you pass something half buried. A pot, scorched black, and beside it, a doll. You keep walking. A small building still stands. The roof is gone, but the walls are upright. Inside, you see more soldiers. Not yours. Russian. Dead. Their uniforms are frozen in place. Rifles by their sides. One, still, has a hand on his chest, like he meant to rise, but didn't. You don't linger. The order comes again. Keep moving, and you do, out of the ruin, out of the smoke, into the snow again. You march for hours. The world fades into grey-white nothing. The landscape offers no help, no signs, no shelter. But you walk, because you must, because there's no other direction left. Julian stumbles again. This time, you don't catch him in time. He falls hard, landing in the snow with a soft grunt. You kneel beside him, help him up. His face is pale, his lips dry. I'm fine, he lies. You both know he's not, but you nod anyway. The day continues, and eventually, blessedly, you reach a crossroads. A fork in the frozen plain, marked by a single wooden post barely standing. One direction leads into a thicket of trees. The other towards something you hadn't seen in weeks. Lights. Tiny. Flickering. Fires. A camp. You feel something then. Faint and warm and strange. Hope. The officer's signal for a halt. You're being allowed to rest again. 2 nights in a row. It feels unnatural, but you welcome it. You move toward the fires. One is already burning near a pile of crates, left behind by some other unit, maybe days ago. You crouch beside it, stretch, your hands out. Julian joins you. He says nothing, just leans in. You listen to the wood crackle. You listen to the wind die down, and you breathe. You're not warm, but you're not marching. And for tonight, that's enough. The fire is burning lower now. Not out, not yet, but the wood's giving up slower heat. The kind that doesn't warm your skin, just reminds you what warmth used to feel like. The flames crackle softly, a background sound that fills the heavy silence without needing to be explained. You're sitting on a crate that someone dragged over. A broken thing with one leg missing. It wobbles every time you shift your weight. You don't mind. The idea of comfort left with the summer. Julian's nearby, curled in a rough ball, shoulders to his ears, scarf wrapped high. He's not sleeping. Not really. His eyes open every few minutes. Just long enough to check he's still here, still alive. Around the fire, more soldiers gather. Quiet figures. No chatter. Just boots scuffing snow, hands extended toward warmth. Faces nearly indistinguishable behind frost-bitten. Beards and soot-streaked cheeks. There are fewer of you than before. You can feel it. Not because anyone said so, but in the way the silence deepens between people. Fewer footfalls, fewer voices, fewer little things, like the scrape of metal bowls or the bark of laughter. It's not just attrition, it's subtraction. The army isn't losing soldiers, it's dissolving them into snow. Still, no one talks about it. You glance around the camp. It's scattered, more like a suggestion of an army than a formation now. clusters of men and firelight, and the shadows in between. Someone's singing somewhere, a song you don't know in a language you don't understand. It rises softly, floats above the frost, then disappears. You wonder if they're Russian, or Polish, or just lonely. You check your boots. Again, they're splitting at the toe now. The right one more than the left. You curl your toes instinctively. It doesn't help. The cold creeps in anyway. Your hands are raw, despite the gloves. The wool has worn, thin at the tips. The skin underneath is cracked, and one knuckle is bleeding. A slow, stubborn kind of bleeding. The kind that doesn't hurt right away. It just leaks, like your body has forgotten it's supposed to keep things in. You think about writing. You used to write letters. It's hard to imagine now, not because there's no paper, though there isn't, but because you don't know what you'd say. Still alive somehow. The snow is deeper today. Julian coughed blood this morning. No, better to say nothing. You tilt your head and look at the stars. Yes, they're out tonight. Strange, after so many days of grey skies. Clear and sharp, pinned to the black like someone scattered crushed glass across silk. You stare at them longer than you should. Not because you're looking for something, but because they don't look cold. They don't look here. And anything that isn't here is worth watching. Someone offers you a scrap of something. Hard bread, dried meat. It's hard to tell. You accept it without thanks and chew slowly. Every bite is loud in your head, crunch, grit, swallow, like you're eating the memory of food instead of food itself. You lean back, close your eyes, just for a moment, and that's when the drum sounds. It's not Julian's. His hasn't been struck in days. This one's deeper, louder. It echoes across the snow like something remembered rather than heard. Not close, not urgent, but enough to pull you back. Voices rise, soft murmurs. Not fear, not quite, but curiosity. The officers are gathering near the largest fire. You can see their silhouettes. Tall, stiff-backed, too clean. Officers always look a little less human in this weather. Their uniforms hold their shape better. They still wear hats without holes. Their boots are polished, or at least not rotting. One of them steps forward. All units prepare to move. We march again at dawn. A pause. Then, the Emperor is ahead. You blink. Napoleon! It's the first time you've heard his name spoken aloud in days. Weeks, maybe. You'd almost forgotten he was still part of this, still leading, still real. The Emperor. Once, the name had fire in it, power, glory. Now it just sounds like a rumour, but there it is. Floating over the fire like smoke. You look at Julian. His eyes meet yours. He says nothing. You say nothing. You both know what it means. Another march. Another direction. Another stretch of frost-bitten miles through a land that wants you to disappear. Still, something stirs. Not pride, not excitement, but momentum. A memory of why you came here. You fall asleep that night to the sound of quiet packing, belts cinching, metal brushing against leather, the hush of men preparing not out of hope, but out of habit. When morning comes, it brings with it a colourless dawn. The sky is neither dark nor light, just a kind of in-between grey. like the whole world is tired of making decisions. You rise, shoulders aching. Your back feels like someone replaced your spine with frozen rope. You stretch, painfully, and look at Julian. He's not moving. You reach over, tap his shoulder. He stirs, slowly, then groans. His eyes blink open, bloodshot and heavy. "You all right?" you ask, voice dry. "No," he says, but he sits up anyway. You both pack in silence. The fire is just ashes now. You don't bother stamping them out. Let the snow do that. The column gathers again, this time a bit more orderly. Officers are pressing for form. "The Emperor," someone says again. The words are being passed around like heat, spoken not because they help, but because they're all you've got. Napoleon is ahead, somewhere, and you're marching toward him. The road, if this one even counts, leads through a long, narrow valley. Hills rise on both sides, their trees bent under weight of snow. It's strangely quiet here. No birds, no wind, just the scuff and crunch of hundreds of boots and the sound of breath fogging in cloth. It goes on for hours. Your legs begin to blur into each other. Your steps stop being individual actions and become one long stretch of tired obedience. Somewhere in the middle of it, a horse passes, not galloping, not dramatic, just trotting slowly along the edge of the line. And on it, yes, him, Napoleon. Or, at least, the shape of him. The famous coat, the hat, the stocky build. You can't see his face clearly. He's flanked by men, officers' guards, the way royalty is flanked. But there's no gold, no fanfare, just movement. The men in the line glance up, but not many cheer. No one dares stop marching, and he doesn't wave. He just rides past, a shadow of something once great, now battered by snow like the rest of you. Julian whispers, "That's him." You nod, "That's him." The silence after is long, thoughtful, and then the march resumes. Later that night, as you sit against a broken wall, you think about what you saw, about the way power looks different in the cold, smaller, sharper, like frost on the edge of a sword. Beautiful but fading. You look up again, the stars are out, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, you imagine yourself back home, not in glory, not with medals, just there alive and warm. By now, your legs walk without asking your permission. They've learned the rhythm. One foot, then the other, again and again, until the world passes under you like a slow, frigid dream. You don't remember when it stopped being painful. Maybe it still is. And your brain has just put the pain somewhere far away so you can keep moving. The snow is finer today, not falling in heavy flakes, but dusting sideways, like powdered chalk being sifted through fingers as you can't see. It drifts over the road, if you can still call this frozen rut a road, and hides yesterday's tracks. It hides a lot of things now. Julian is walking more slowly beside you. He's not limping exactly, not anymore. Now he just kind of drifts, like his legs are only loosely attached to his body. He doesn't complain. He doesn't speak much. But you can hear his breathing, shallow and dry. His cheeks are sunken, so are yours. Around you, the army feels even thinner. The column stretches ahead, but not far. You can almost see the end of it from here. Once, the Grande Armée filled whole valleys with its numbers. A flood of soldiers and cannons and drums and ambition. Now, it feels like the ghosts of that army are marching in its place. You pass another body, this one frozen in a kneeling position, arms curled around his chest, face tilted up toward the sky as if waiting for something kinder than what came. Snow has settled in his eyelashes. He could be sleeping, but you don't stop. No one does. There's a rumor, floating like smoke through the column, that you're approaching Smolensk again. The retreat has circled back, looping like a snake through the Russian frost. Some of the older soldiers mutter that it's cursed, that the city is little more than ash and ghosts now. You believe them. Still, Smolensk means shelter. Or at least the memory of it. It means stone walls and roofs, and a break from sleeping in burned-out stables and under broken carts. Even if all that waits there is more ruin, it's ruin with walls. The officers seem sharper today, more alert. They ride with hands on hilts, eyes scanning the trees. You sense it too. Something is different. The wind has a different kind of bite. The silence is thicker. You pass a mile marker, barely legible, covered in ice. But there it is, a sign that civilization once reached this far. A few hours later, you see the first shapes, stone buildings, crumbled walls, blackened beams reaching into the grey sky like ribs through burnt skin. Smolensk, what's left of it? You don't cheer, you don't smile. But your shoulders loosen just a bit. Shelter is shelter, even if it smells like fire and rot. As you approach the city, you realize something strange. There's movement. Not just your own, but others. Not soldiers. Not in uniform. Civilians, peasants, survivors. They move through alleys like shadows, wrapped in furs and silence. Watching. Their eyes are hard, not cruel, just emptied by winter. They don't wave. They don't beg. They just exist in the cracks, in what little warmth is left between the stones. You and Julian are assigned to a stone building near the edge of town. What might have once been a shop. The windows are gone. The door is a plank nailed awkwardly, in place, but inside it's dry. You step in and feel your knees nearly give way. Not from cold this time, from stillness. The room is bare. Just 4 walls, a low ceiling, and the smell of stale smoke. But it has a fireplace. A real one, with a chimney and everything. You both move toward it like moths. There's no wood, of course. But someone left behind a shattered bench. It breaks easily. The fire takes effort. But you've done this so many times now. It's muscle memory. Flint, spark, breath, smoke. Then, finally, flame. You sit so close to it that your knees begin to steam. Your fingers tingle. Julian removes his boot. The bandage on his foot is stuck to the skin. He peels it off slowly, teeth gritted. The skin beneath is wrong, blue and cracked and shiny in places. You try not to react. He looks at you and shrugs. No drama, no despair. Just this again. You both laugh a little. Not because it's funny, but because if you don't laugh, the silence will eat you alive. Someone knocks on the wall. Another soldier says something about rations being handed out near the church. You nod. He nods. and disappears. You take turns leaving. One stays with the fire, while the other goes. Julian returns with a tin of soup so thin it's almost clear, but it's hot. And that alone makes it worth savouring. You sip yours slowly, tongue burning, lips chapped, and for a moment it's not so bad. Later, the sound of shouting rips through. The street outside. You bolt upright. Your muscles scream, but your heart is already racing. It's not gunfire, but it's not friendly either. You creep to the window, peer through the broken glass. A fight. Soldiers arguing with townspeople. One man throws something. A soldier grabs him. Then others join in. It's chaos, brief and brutal. But over fast, you step back, heart still pounding. Julian watches you. Was it them? You nod. Any of ours? You shake your head. He sighs and pulls his scarf higher over his face. Later that night, you lie on the floor, the fire nearly out. Your back presses against rough wood. Your breath rises in thin, rhythmic puffs. Julian is already asleep, twitching, slightly, murmuring to himself in some dream that probably smells like home. You stare at the ceiling. You think of things you miss. Not grand things, not cities or parades, but dumb little things. Soap, a fresh loaf of bread with the crust still warm. Your mother humming while she kneads dough. The sound of rain without the cold. You close your eyes. Outside, Smolensk groans quietly in its ruins. The snow drifts past shattered rooftops. The army rests, and for tonight, you're not moving. You let sleep take you, slow and quiet, and hope, quietly, privately, that when morning comes, your boots still fit. You wake up with your face against stone, not because you meant to sleep that way, but because in the night you must have slid down the wall like wax from a melting candle. The fire's gone, the warmth is gone, but the cold stayed. Your cheek feels numb. Your nose, you're not even sure it's still attached. The breath you let out floats upward, white and lazy. You blink, once, twice. Your eyelids crackle like thin ice being flexed. Julian is beside you, still asleep, though he doesn't look like it. One eye half open, mouth slightly parted, body bent in a way that shouldn't be comfortable, but is better than freezing. Outside, there's a quiet kind of stirring, the kind that comes right before orders. You know it now, the gentle clink of gear, the throat clearing, the controlled silence of men preparing for motion without any real energy behind it, the quiet of obedience without belief. You rise slowly, as if fighting off the weight of snow itself. The aches are background noise. By now, your muscles no longer protest. They just endure. You're not even surprised when the word comes down. We march again. No ceremony, no warning, just the same cold, flat fact. We march. You nudge Julian awake. He groans, but rolls onto his side and eventually pushes himself upright. No words, not at first, just the grunt of a young man whose legs are more promise than muscle now. He opens and closes his fingers in the cold. Still got 10, he mutters, voice groggy. You smile. You both know that's going to change. Your boots are a problem. The right one especially. The leather is cracking in places. The sole feels thin. It's like walking on frozen paper. You tighten the laces anyway. There's no backup plan. By sunrise, you're back in line. The columns are thin now, not in the sense of formation, in the sense of people. You can see the gaps. Where 10 men used to stand, now there are 3. Where drums once beat, now there's just a quiet trudge of boots against brittle snow. The road narrows between 2 icy ridgelines. It looks like a corridor carved out by giants. Snow climbs up the sides, packed hard against stone and wind-blasted trees. Above, the sky is washed out silver, colourless, endless, and without promise. As you walk, your breath becomes your metronome. In, out, in, out. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Step, step, step. You stop thinking about where you're going. You just focus on the sound of your boots and the frost forming in your scarf. The only variation is the silence. It's loud, not just lack of voices, but the kind of stillness that makes every rustle of cloth and cough feel like a scream. No birds, no wolves, just footsteps, breath, and snow crunching underfoot. At some point in the morning, a man behind you collapses. You don't see it, but you hear the soft thump, the hush that follows, the quiet, measured, familiar words. Leave him. No one questions it. If he gets up, he'll rejoin. If not, well, you've already stepped over too many bodies to count. Julian trips shortly after. Not badly, just a knee to the snow, a hand to steady himself. But it rattles you. You reach for him, help him back up. He leans on you for a second longer than usual. I saw a cat, he says quietly, breath fogging in the air. Over, there, by that rock, just staring at us. You glance over. There's no cat, but you nod anyway. He's been seeing things more often lately. You march through what must have once been a village, or something like one. A single wall remains, half tilted. A wheel, a well. The stones are scattered and covered in ice, like a snow globe had been smashed and left to melt. No fires, no footprints, just memory. At midday, you're permitted to stop. A strange word. Permitted when everyone is so close to collapsing. But you take it. You sit on a rock, knees bent, scarf tucked so tightly around your mouth it muffles your breath. Julian drops beside you. He digs into his pocket and produces a sliver of something dark. Dried plum, he says, holding it up. Found it yesterday. Thought it was a beetle. You raise your eyebrows. I was still going to eat it, he shrugs, then pops it into his mouth. You laugh, more out of surprise than amusement. But still, it's a real sound. The break doesn't last long. Nothing does now. By afternoon, the snow starts again. Not in big flakes, but in that fine, relentless dusting that crawls into your collar and fingers and nose, and never stops falling. It gets in your ears, your eyebrows, your soul. You come to another river, not wide, but frozen solid. A crossing has already been marked out. Dozens of boots have tested it. You don't even hesitate. The ice groans beneath you, but it holds. Once across, the road climbs. Not steeply, but long. A slow ascent that seems to have no crest. Your legs burn, then go numb again. You try not to think, try not to feel. You focus on one step, then another, then another. Eventually, you crest the hill, and you see them. Fires flickering dots in the distance. Dozens of them. Real ones. Controlled. Not just scrap wood kindled in panic, but signs of preparation. Tents, wagons, horses, officers standing like statues around campfires. An outpost. A real one. Somewhere. Someone has organized this. You all begin to move. Toward it. Not quickly. You're too tired for that. But there's a shift in the march. A lurching hunger. A pull. And finally, warmth. Your unit is directed toward a field tent. A large one stitched from thick canvas, propped up between two wagons for shelter against the wind. It smells like wet wool and boiled onions. You would cry from happiness, but you're too cold. Inside, straw has been laid down. Rough blankets are stacked in a corner. You and Julian find a patch near the rear. As far from the wind as possible, you drop to the ground. It feels like sinking into a dream. Julian doesn't even remove his boots. He just pulls his knees to his chest and lets out a long breath. "I forgot what a tent smells like," he mumbles. You nod, then you listen to the sounds around you, the hiss of soup over a fire, the low hum of someone whistling, the distant bark of an officer yelling about something irrelevant. It almost feels like not war, just for a little while. You curl onto your side, close your eyes, and let the tent's warmth blur the edges of your exhaustion. The snow falls outside, but in here you forget it for a while. You don't dream, you just float. You awaken with the blanket half off your shoulders, and the sound of someone softly snoring nearby. The tent is dim, lit only by pale grey morning light, filtering through patches in the fabric. The air smells like wool, damp straw, boiled cabbage, and the unmistakable sting of unwashed bodies. Not a pleasant scent, but somehow comforting now. It means people. It means life. Julian's still asleep beside you. He's curled tightly, like a folded letter, one hand tucked under his head, the other clutching his drum like it's something precious, even though neither of you remembers the last time he actually played it. Maybe it's just a piece of the man he used to be. You sit up slowly, your spine cracks like a frozen branch. You stretch, carefully. Too fast and you might cramp. Too slow and you'll freeze right where you sit. Your boots are still on. You didn't take them off last night. Nobody really does anymore. Because if you take them off, you might not get them back on. You reach for your scarf. It's stiff with frost. Outside, the wind hisses against the side of the tent like it's trying to speak. You hear footsteps, a few voices, men stirring, not from the promise of breakfast or orders, but from sheer habit. The cold won't let anyone sleep too long. You pull yourself to your feet. Someone passes you a tin cup with something warm in it. You nod in thanks before even looking. The liquid inside is more broth than soup. A pale brown swirl of onion, meat, and mystery. But it's hot. That's all you need. You sip slowly. Julian groans behind you. Then, faintly, "Tell me I'm in a bed. A real bed. With feather pillows and someone singing downstairs." You glance back at him. Not even close. He exhales through his nose. Didn't think so. The officers begin speaking again. You can hear them just outside. Their clipped voices cutting through the dull morning like bayonets through canvas. Vanguard routed. Waiting for reinforcements. He was spotted south of the crossing. You don't catch everything, but you don't need to. The gist is always the same. Keep moving. A little while later, you and Julian join the others assembling in the clearing. The camp is a modest one. Tents clustered around low fires, cannons positioned like statues, a few wagons with shattered wheels sitting off to the side like forgotten toys. No one speaks much. You do the usual. Check your boots, adjust your pack, stretch your shoulders. Everything creaks, everything hurts. You've stopped hoping it won't. Then an officer rides by. Not fast, not slow, just enough to make sure you see him. His horse is lean and trembling. He raises a gloved hand and says something you've come to recognize as a formality. We march. The men around you don't groan, they just move. You fall back into line. Another day, another stretch of frozen earth. But this time, the landscape has changed. It's flatter now, wide, empty, plains of snow and silence. No trees, no cover, just a sky the colour of old tin and a wind that never quite stops chewing at your cheeks. The road is barely there. A faint path of frozen ruts, some hoof prints, the occasional stain in the snow. You ask someone where you're headed. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. The maps are useless. You believe him. After hours of walking, the wind picks up. It brings with it a sound. At first, it seems like your imagination. But no, it's real. A steady, low thunder that pulses through the ground, more than through your ears. It builds slowly, louder, stronger, until it feels like the earth itself is warning you. Artillery, not close, not yet, but not far either. The officers start urging more speed, not yelling, just walking faster themselves. Assuming you'll match them. It's a trick. You do, because you don't want to be left behind. Julian stumbles again, not a full fall, but he grips your sleeve this time. You help him along. One arm over your shoulder, his weight sagging into your ribs. His breathing is shallow again. Am I slowing you down? He asks. You look at him. We're not winning a race. He nods, tries to smile. You keep walking. The landscape shifts again. You come upon the remnants of a convoy. Shattered wagons, splintered axles, crates torn open like carcasses. Snow covers most of it, but here and there you see shapes. A soldier, half buried, horse with its legs in the air, a wheel still spinning in the wind. Nobody stops to scavenge. That's how you know it's recent. The thunder grows louder. Someone says, "We're close to the Berezina." That name sticks in your brain. You've heard it before. From maps, from rumours, from frightened whispers, a river, a crossing, a trap. You don't know the full story, but you know enough to feel your stomach twist. The Berezina. The word tastes cold in your mouth. As the sun drops behind a curtain of clouds, you finally see it. Not the river, not yet, but the smoke rising like towers into the sky. Not from cooking fires, not from campfires, but from something vast and terrible. You smell gunpowder, charcoal, mud, something burning that shouldn't be burning. The wind carries screams. You can't tell if they're real. Then you hear something unmistakable. Musket fire, sharp, fast, echoing like a hammer against steel. You're not at the front, but you're near enough now that your footsteps feel too loud. Julian's grip tightens. We're going into it. You nod. He already knew. You're ordered to bivouac just outside a ridge, the last before the crossing. The tents here are makeshift, many of them already half frozen to the ground. You find shelter behind a broken cart, the boards warped with bullet holes and frost. There's no fire tonight. Too risky. The cold bites deeper than ever. Julian curls beside you. You don't speak. There's no point. The night stretches long and grey. The stars are gone. The wind doesn't howl, it hisses, long and low, like the breath of something ancient watching from the trees. Somewhere nearby, a cannon fires, just once. No follow-up, no crash of battle, just the solitary sound of steel being flung across sky and snow, then silence again. You stare upward, toward the part of the tent where wind pulls the cloth slightly open. You imagine home again, this time not bread or laughter, just a bed. A pillow that doesn't freeze under your head. A door that locks. A fire that burns quietly. A night where you can sleep without worrying what the sky might bring. You curl in tighter and wait for the morning, whatever it brings. You're not sure what wakes you. It might be the cold, colder than yesterday, colder than memory, or the sound of men moving around you in low, groaning silence. It's not a morning sound, not cheerful, not eager, just the dragging hush of people trying not to think too hard about being alive. Julian is beside you, still breathing, still shivering, but quiet. You gently shake him. His eyes open slowly, like he's coming up from underwater. "Is it time?" he whispers. You nod. Neither of you asks for what. You just rise. Everything in you aches, not in the dramatic way. No stabbing, no roaring pain, just the deep, leaden ache of a body that's been used past its warranty. You feel old, though you're not. Your hands shake. Your knees buckle a little when you straighten, but you stand. Around you, others are doing the same, rising in jerky movements, brushing frost from shoulders, blinking like newborns. Some are already packing, some just staring at the smoke rising from the east. You can smell it clearly now. Charcoal, horseflesh, gunpowder, and fear. The Berezina River is ahead. You can feel it, even if you can't see it yet. Like standing before a storm you've only heard stories about. You and Julian join the column. It's thinner than ever. There are gaps now that can't be filled. The drums are long silent, the flags tattered beyond recognition. What was once an army is now a procession, not marching so much as drifting. The road leads downward through a shallow valley choked with white haze. Each footstep crunches, then squelches. The snow here has begun to melt, oddly, as if the land itself is sweating. Then you see it, the river, wide, icy, furious. It's not frozen, not here. Black water churns beneath thin plates of breaking ice. Mist rises from its surface. On the far bank, smoke curls upward from hastily built camps. You think you see gun flashes, or maybe that's just your eyes playing tricks. There are bridges, 2 of them. Not real ones, wooden planks and hastily lashed supports, built by engineers working without sleep, men crawling across, dragging ropes and carts and cannon wheels, shouting, always shouting, orders, warnings, prayers. The crossing is chaos. You and Julian are pushed forward. You don't even argue. There's no time. There's no logic. There's just movement. Forward, 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 towards the wood and ice and shrieking river. The first bridge creaks under your boots. You grip the rope on the side and don't look down, but you hear it, the groan of the water, the snap of splinters, the yells of men falling. Somewhere behind you, someone screams, then goes silent too fast. Julian clutches your arm. You feel him slipping, not physically, but mentally. He's shaking his head, muttering, "It's not real, it's not real." But it is, and you keep going. The bridge sways, boards crack, but you make it. You stumble off the far bank like a drunk, landing hard on frozen mud. Your knees hit first, then your palms. You feel your teeth clack together. You're across. You made it, but not everyone does. You look back once. The second bridge has collapsed. Figures fall with it, arms flailing in silence. The splash is lost in the wind. You don't see who they were. You don't want to. The officers wave frantically, urging the others across what's left. The engineers are already tying ropes, building again, faster, more desperate. You and Julian don't wait. You're pushed forward again, away from the riverbank, towards another stretch of road. There's no cheering, no relief. Just one more box ticked on the long list of impossible things you were expected to survive. Hours pass, or maybe they don't. Time folds strangely now. You pass broken wagons, men collapsed in ditches, a mule half frozen into the earth like a sculpture of failure. At some point, someone calls for a halt. You and Julian settle beside a toppled tree. Neither of you says anything for a long while. Then Julian speaks. "We made it." You nod slowly. Yeah. His face turns toward yours. "You think we'll get home?" The question floats there, like smoke, like breath in winter. You don't answer right away, because to answer honestly would mean admitting that you don't know where home even is anymore, or what waits there, or who. Finally, you say, "We'll try." He nods. It's enough. The wind softens for the first time in days. The trees whisper above you, just enough to make a sound. You lean back. Let the trunk of the fallen tree hold your weight. Your eyes close. You don't mean to sleep, but you do, and when you dream, it's not of war. It's not of cold or marching or bridges. It's of summer, of sun through leaves, of a field you once walked through as a child, of the sound of bees and the scent of warm earth, and the gentle creak of a window swinging open to let in air. No drums, no cannons, no frost, just breath, just light, just the feeling of stillness. You dream of that, and let the world around you fall away. Because finally, even just for now, you are no longer marching. You are no longer at war. You are just at rest. You stir gently beneath the rough linen of your bed. The coarse fabric is still warm from your own body heat. For a fleeting second, it feels like morning. But the sounds outside your window tell you otherwise. There are horse hooves clopping against cobblestone, the soft murmur of drunk voices tumbling out of a tavern, and somewhere far off the clang of metal. It must be the middle of the night, or perhaps just before dawn. In this year, in this version of London, there are no glowing alarm clocks. Time is counted in church bells, candle stubs, and instinct. You lie on a narrow mattress in a cramped wooden room above the bakery. It's the place where you work, learn, and try not to set your eyebrows on fire. You are an apprentice baker. The work is hard, and the pay is almost imaginary, but it's honest. The kind of job that keeps the city fed and your hands calloused. Your arms are strong from kneading dough, and the back of your neck always smells faintly of ash. Everything in the room smells like ash, really. The wooden walls, the mattress, your clothes, even the splintered floorboards under your bare feet. There is a little window near your head that you sometimes open when the smell becomes too thick. It rarely helps. Tonight, the candle near your bedside is still flickering. You must have forgotten to blow it out. Again! The flame leans to one side like it's tired too. Its orange light stretches across the low wooden beams of the ceiling, casting soft shadows that shift when you move. You think about turning over and going back to sleep, but something doesn't feel quite right. There's a strange feeling in the air. Not fear, not yet. Just an edge. A slight itch in the chest. A warning without words. You sit up slowly and place your feet on the floor. The planks feel warm. Too warm. You frown at that. The oven is downstairs, sure, but the fire should have burned out hours ago. Maybe your master forgot to douse it. Maybe you did. You rub your face, trying to shake the fog of sleep. Then something outside the window catches your eye. A red light. It doesn't glow like the moon. It wavers. You lean toward it. There, across the narrow lane, a flicker. A thread of flame curling into the air like it's curious. At first, you think it's small. Nothing to worry about. A chimney fire, maybe. A torch knocked over by some drunken passer-by. But it doesn't go out. You blink. The flame is bigger now. Your stomach tightens. Fires aren't rare in London. Not in this year. The houses are packed tightly together, like books on a shelf. Schlicker. Timber is old and dry. The air has been warm for weeks, the kind of heat that dries your throat and makes wood feel lighter in your hands. Still, fires usually die out. Buckets of water. Screaming neighbours. A few frantic minutes, and then it's over. Usually, but not tonight. You hurry to the stairs, knocking over a stool in your rush. The crash makes your heart jump. You mutter under your breath and stumble down to the bakery. Smoke meets you halfway. Not thick, but sharp enough to sting your eyes. The hearth glows a dull red, and there's a basket of kindling nearby. The flames are nibbling at it already. You reach for the water jug. It's empty. Of course it is. You dart back upstairs. You need to think fast. You grab your bag from the hook near the door. Inside goes a thin shirt, a piece of stale cheese, and a few coins that you're not even sure are enough for anything. You throw on a cloak that isn't yours. Your master is gone tonight, visiting his sister across the river. He wouldn't mind. You hope he wouldn't. You don't bother with shoes. Outside, the sound has changed. The quiet crackling is gone. In its place is something alive, something hungry. A roar that creeps up the walls and snakes into the rooftops. People are shouting now. High voices, deep ones. Some are calling names. Others are just yelling. You step outside and the heat kisses your face instantly. The bakery next door is already burning. You look down the lane. The buildings are too close. The fire is leaping from roof to roof, faster than you thought possible. Sparks float in the air like fireflies. Only these ones can kill you. You don't panic. Not yet. You duck back inside and wet a cloth from the wash basin. You tie it around your mouth. It smells sour, but better than smoke. You sling the bag over your shoulder and step into the street. People are everywhere now. Some are running, others are frozen, staring at the flames like they're hypnotized. A man passes by carrying a painting too big for his arms. Someone else is dragging a crate full of books. You nearly trip over a basket of apples rolling loose across the ground. You tell yourself to breathe, to move. You're near the heart of it. The fire started here. That's bad, but also useful. You've seen its beginning. That gives you a chance. If you go quickly, if you stay ahead of it, you can escape before the city becomes a furnace. The trick is to avoid the panic. You turn down a narrow alley. The walls are close and the ground is slick. A cat darts past your legs and disappears into the shadows. You hear the creak of collapsing wood somewhere behind you. The air smells of soot and something else, something darker. Burning oil, burning cloth, burning memories. You don't stop. You move block by block, watching the wind. It's carrying the fire east. That means you should head west, or maybe north. You think of Ludgate Hill, or even the fields outside the city. Somewhere open, somewhere green. You try to picture the layout in your head. You've run errands all over London, delivered loaves, fetched grain, collected ash. You know which streets twist and which ones climb. You know the bridges, the market squares, the courtyards behind churches. Your feet slap against the cobblestones. Still no shoes. You tell yourself it's fine. They'd only slow you down. Your breath comes faster now. Not from fear, just from running. You pass a woman trying to load her children into a cart pulled by a donkey that refuses to move. You offer to help, but she waves you on. Her face is streaked with ash. Her eyes look too wide. You keep going. The fire is behind you, but not far. The sky glows like sunrise. But no birds are singing, only the fire and the people. The noises blend together into a single rhythm. You pause at a corner, leaning against a stone wall. It's cool to the touch. You close your eyes for a moment, just one. Then you keep moving. You aren't just running anymore. You're choosing, thinking. Looking for signs in the wind, in the sky, in the way people move. This isn't just survival. It's something more. A chance to shape the way you get through this. A chance to take control. The night is long, but your legs are steady. London is burning, but you are not. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, you won't. The wind hasn't stopped. It moves like a hand pushing across the rooftops, dragging heat and sparks in every direction. You've never noticed the wind like this before. Not in the market, not by the docks. But now, every gust feels personal. You can feel it in your cloak, in your hair, in your lungs. You're farther from Pudding Lane now. The bakery is gone. Probably consumed minutes after you left. You don't think about it too hard. You can't. There isn't time to mourn a building, or bread, or soot-stained floorboards that held your bed. You have to keep walking. A narrow alley opens up into a wider street. You recognize it. Fish Street Hill. Normally, it smells like brine and yesterday's cod. But now it smells like smoke and broken things. The fishmonger's stalls are charred skeletons. Bits of netting flap in the air like haunted sails. A half-burned barrel rolls slowly down the incline. hitting the curb with a soft thud. To your left, the steeple of a church leans slightly, like it's listening. You think it's St. Magnus the Martyr. You remember a delivery there early, one morning when the sky was blue and the stones were cool to the touch. Now the sky is glowing orange and the stones are bleeding heat. You glance up and spot a pair of pigeons flying low, their wings panicked, their paths uncertain. Even they don't know where to go. You understand. You don't either. There are people everywhere, not a crowd, just individuals, families, shopkeepers, maids, stable boys, priests. All of them are scattered, moving in different directions like ants from a kicked nest. Some are barefoot like you. Others wear half-buttoned coats, nightgowns or cloaks held shut by rope. You pass an old man sitting on a step, holding a single shoe in his lap. He stares at it like it's the last familiar thing in the world. You want to stop, to say something, to do something. But your legs keep going. There's a fire behind you, and every step forward feels like it matters more than the last. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It smells like smoke now, even though it didn't when you left. Everything smells like smoke. You wonder if you'll ever feel clean again. The kind of clean that comes from a cold morning bath and fresh linen on your skin. That feels like another life now. You slow as you approach a fork in the road. To the left is a wide path toward the Thames. To the right, the hill toward Cheapside. You weigh your options. The river is open, cool, wide, but it's also full of desperate people trying to flee. The hill, though crowded, is higher ground. Stone buildings. Maybe a place to rest, maybe not. A soft voice behind you breaks your thoughts. It's a boy, younger than you, thin, dusty, with a torn coat and sharp eyes. He asks if you know which way leads to Moorfields. You point vaguely north and say you think it's that way. He nods and walks past you, holding the hand of a little girl who hasn't said a word. She clutches a doll with half its stuffing gone. The doll's face is smudged with soot, but her eyes remain painted on, cheerful and frozen in time. You turn toward the hill. The climb is slow. The cobblestones are uneven, and your feet feel every edge, every chip. Your soles are sore. You pause, often, not just from exhaustion, but to check behind you, to listen. The fire is chasing you, not like a predator with a face, more like a tide. It rolls, it eats, it grows. People fall behind. Some sit down and give up. Others run so fast they trip over their own panic. You keep walking. You pass a man pushing a cart full of books. He moves carefully, as if they're glass. His face is streaked with sweat, but his hands are gentle. You ask him why the books. He says they're his father's, nothing more. You nod. He nods. Then you walk on. At the top of the hill, you find a small square. It's quieter here. The air is thick, but not blistering. A fountain in the center gurgles softly. It's water still, clean. You cup your hands and drink. It tastes like stone and time. But it's cold, and that matters more. A woman sits nearby, fanning herself with a piece of parchment. She has no bags, no children, no shoes, just the parchment, which you realize is a letter. She's reading it over and over, her lips moving silently. You wonder what it says. You wonder if the words are more comforting than the present. You find a low wall, and sit. Your legs ache, your feet pulse. You let yourself rest for a moment, just one. The fire hasn't reached here yet. The sky is still orange, but the wind has slowed. Or maybe you're just getting used to it. You check your satchel. Still a bit of cheese, still the coins. You think of buying something, but there's nothing for sale. No market left. No shopkeepers left behind their stalls. Your hands are black, with soot. You rub them against your cloak. It doesn't help. The dirt just spreads. You scratch your neck and feel a crust of ash that wasn't there before. You wonder how people will recognize each other when this is over. Everyone will look the same. Burned, tired, changed. A dog trots past you, ears low, tail tucked. It stops, looks at you, then continues on. You think about following it. Maybe it knows where it's going. Maybe no one does. You stand again. From here, you can see the river. It glows with reflected firelight, flickering like a mirror full of angry stars. Boats crowd the shoreline. People push, shout, lift bundles over their heads. Some are trying to carry wardrobes. Others hold teapots like treasure. A man drops a crate into the water. It floats for a second, then tips, spilling apples that bob, like little lanterns. You consider heading down there. A boat could take you far from the city, across the Thames, to Southwark, or beyond. But something holds you here, a sense that you need to move through this, not away from it. That running isn't enough. That there's something else ahead you're meant to see. You decide to stay high, to find the open spaces, maybe the fields near Finsbury. You remember Moorfields from springtime. Soft grass, cool air, wide skies. That feels like another planet now. You begin walking again, slower this time. Your muscles feel like wet rope, but your mind is clear. Every step is a decision. Every breath is deliberate. You pass more people. A woman with a saucepan full of coins. A man with a violin and nothing else. A group of children chanting something that sounds like a nursery rhyme, though the words are wrong. Everything is familiar and strange at once. A dream dipped in smoke. Your path turns northward. The streets are less crowded here. More stone, fewer flames. The air is clearer. You can finally smell something else. Grass, maybe. The promise of green. You take a deep breath. It's not clean, not really, but it's better. You pause under a stone archway, the kind that used to mean protection, shelter. Now it's just a marker, a line between fire and maybe not fire. You close your eyes, the wind brushes past you again. Still warm, still dangerous, but it's behind you now. And ahead of you, that's open space, that's possibility, that might be survival. You walk through what feels like the edge of the world. The wind has slowed, but the air remains heavy. Not just with smoke, but with something more invisible. A kind of silence, the kind that follows shock. The kind that makes every footstep sound louder than it should. Behind you, London crackles. Not a single sound, but a chorus. Wood splitting, stone crumbling, glass shattering in little screams. Fire doesn't roar like an animal. It eats, slow and certain. It makes a sound like thick cloth tearing, like the earth sighing from beneath the city's bones. You glance back only once. The skyline is changing already. Roofs are collapsing, windows glowing, then gone. You can't see the bakery anymore. The place where you spent so many mornings watching dough rise and crust form in the heat of the oven is ash now. You feel no urge to cry. Not yet. The tears might come later, when the smoke clears, when the silence sets in. Right now, there is only movement, and your bare feet, scraped and tender, pressing forward step by step. You've made it to the edge of the inner city. The streets here are wider. The buildings are made of thicker stone, some with iron doors and steep slate roofs. These homes belong to wealthier folk, merchants, nobles, bankers who can afford silence and privacy. Their windows are mostly dark. If anyone is still inside, they are hiding. You can feel it. You can almost hear the hush behind their curtains. You step carefully through a courtyard scattered with fallen leaves and bits of cloth. The wind picks up again, just a little, sending swirls of ash dancing along the ground like ghosts with nowhere to go. Your stomach growls. You haven't eaten since the night before. The wedge of cheese in your bag is soft and damp from heat, but you break off a piece and chew slowly. It tastes like salt and smoke. You chase it down with a sip of water from a cracked leather flask someone left behind near a doorway. It might not be safe, but you don't care. Not right now. As you eat, you sit on the edge of a low wall. Your cloak hangs loose around your shoulders, streaked with soot. There's a patch torn near your elbow. You hadn't noticed that before. You scratch at the grime on your wrist and stare at the sky. It's no longer fully dark. The sun is somewhere, behind the smoke, trying to rise. You see light without seeing shape. Just a dull golden push trying to break through the haze. The birds have stopped singing. You wonder if they've flown north already, beyond the fire, beyond the panic. You envy them for a moment. Wings seem like a wise invention today. A voice catches your ear, low and urgent. You turn your head. A man is hurrying down the lane, pulling a cart with one wheel. It tips with every third step. Inside the cart is a small barrel, a sack of potatoes, and what looks like a painting. A child's face peeks out from beneath the painting's frame. The man sees you and pauses. He asks if the fire has reached Bishopsgate. You don't know. You haven't been that far. You shake your head and tell him truthfully that the fire is fast. He mutters something under his breath and keeps going, dragging his cart and his life behind him. The wheel creaks like an old violin string. You stand again, dust off your legs, and follow the alley north. The ground here is softer, more earth than stone. There are little patches of grass peeking through the edges of buildings, and in the distance you see trees, real trees, not carved into wood, not painted in oil, but full leafy trees swaying gently in the smoky wind. You feel your shoulders relax for the first time. This must be close to Moorfields. You remember being sent here in the spring. You had delivered loaves to a priest who lived near the fields. He gave you a copper coin and called you bread boy, which you pretended to hate but secretly liked. He had a little garden with lavender that made your hands smell like sleep. The memory feels impossibly distant now, like it happened to someone else. Someone who didn't have ash stuck between their toes and smoke clinging to their lungs. You step into the green. The field is open though trampled in places. Others have come here too. You can see them, not many. A few families huddled around bundles, a group of boys chasing a dog, an old woman asleep under a tree with a bonnet pulled over her eyes. You pick a quiet patch not far from a low hedge and sink down into the grass. It's cool, damp with morning dew. The smoke has drifted high enough that you can see the tops of trees clearly. Some clouds linger overhead, dull and grey, as if trying to decide whether to weep. You let yourself lie back, arms stretched out, eyes closed. For the first time since the fire began, your body feels still. Not safe, but still. You don't fall. Asleep, not quite. But you drift. In that space between thought and dream, you feel memories rise to the surface. The smell of fresh bread in the morning. The sting of your master's voice when you burned a batch. The weight of flour sacks against your shoulders. The sound of your own heartbeat when the fire started. You remember the flame. Just a flicker, that first moment. How small it looked. You open your eyes again. A girl is sitting nearby, no older than 12, watching you. She has twigs in her hair and a cat curled on her lap. The cat blinks at you once, slow and lazy. You nod at her. She doesn't speak, just feeds the cat a crumb of bread. You sit up and stretch. Your body pops in a few places. Your feet are aching. Your hands look older than they should. Your nails are black at the edges. You wonder what will happen to this city, how long the fire will burn, how far it will reach. You wonder if anyone is still trying to stop it, or if they've given up. You think of the river again, of boats ferrying people to the far banks. You think of how many people stayed behind. You don't know where you'll go next, but for now, you breathe in out. The fire is still behind you, but so is the night, and you have reached the fields, and the fields are still green. You wake with a twitch, not a jolt, not a scream, just a slow, confused twitch, as if your body isn't quite sure it wants to return to the waking world. You blink and realize you're lying in grass. Your cheek is damp. There's a small twig stuck to your sleeve. For a moment, your mind flutters with the strange hope that all of this was a bad dream, that you're still home in your room above the bakery, and soon your master will be calling you down to light the ovens. But the air still smells of ash, and the sky is still smudged with smoke, so you sit up. You're not alone in the field anymore. During the few hours you dozed, the green space has become a quiet refuge. Dozens of others have arrived, families with blankets wrapped around them like cloaks, children kicking at tufts of dry grass, couples whispering, merchants watching, the sky as if it owes them something. Everyone is facing the same direction. Toward the city, you follow their gaze. The skyline is no longer just flickering light. It's shapeless now, swallowed by a curtain of dark smoke. Towers that once marked neighborhoods are gone. Church spires reduced to stumps. Homes and shops, taverns and tailors, all consumed. It looks like a painting someone smudged with their thumb, the details smeared into chaos. Your stomach tightens. It's still going. You stand, stretch your arms, and feel your muscles complain. Your cloak is stiff with dried sweat and soot. You shake it out, but the dust only floats, then settles. Again, the ache in your feet has dulled to a background throb, steady and familiar now. You look around. People have started building little makeshift shelters from carts, crates, even blankets stretched between trees. One family has created a tiny square of calm with a table and 2 stools. There's no food on the table, just a cracked teapot and a tin cup. But they sit there, straight-backed, like it's Sunday afternoon, and everything is normal. You envy them a little. You consider staying here. It would be easy in some ways. Just wait. Wait for the fire to burn itself out. Wait for someone important to make announcements. Wait for bread to return, for homes to be rebuilt, for life to resume. But something in you resists. You didn't run just to stop here. You feel a pull. Not from fear anymore, but from curiosity, from the need to know, to see what remains. You need to move again, to trace the edge of the damage, to understand what happened. You tighten your satchel, check your coins, still there, and begin walking. You move slowly through the field until you reach a rough footpath winding toward the city. A few others are walking too, hesitant, quiet. No one speaks. There is only the soft rhythm of footsteps and the occasional cough as the wind shifts the smoke. The closer you get, the more the world changes. Grass becomes ash. The green fades into brown, then grey. The sky dims again, though the sun has risen behind the veil of smoke. The light is strange, filtered, ghostly. It falls in patches, lighting broken carts and blackened fences like scenes from a half-finished play. You reach a small churchyard. The headstones are intact, though some are scorched. Flowers left by graves are wilted or burned to stalks. A child's toy lies forgotten near one of the markers. A wooden horse with one wheel missing. You pause. Even the dead seem unsettled. You keep walking. Soon you enter the edge of the city again, or what's left of it. The streets you once walked are unrecognizable. Where houses stood, there are now ribs of charred wood. Stone walls lean inward, exhausted. Windows gape open like mouths mid-scream. You step over fragments of pottery, scorched shoes, a kettle with its handle half melted. Your own bakery would be nearby. You search for the shape of it, the angle of the roof, the pattern of the windows. But it's gone. Nothing left but a crooked beam and a collapsed doorway. The air is hot here, still pulsing with heat. Not flame anymore. Just the heat that lingers in walls and memories. You kneel in the dust. For a moment, you press your hand to the stone where your bed would have been. It's warm. And that's somehow worse than cold. Cold would mean it was over. This feels like an echo still burning. You stand and dust off your knees. Ahead, a soft clatter. You freeze, then you see him. A boy, perhaps 9 or 10, picking through the rubble of what used to be a butcher's shop. He's using a stick to poke at a metal pot, his face streaked with soot. He sees you and pauses. You raise your hand, not in warning, not in greeting, just so he knows you mean no harm. He nods and continues digging. You move on. The fire has moved eastward now. But there are still places where smoke rises in lazy spirals, drifting from cellars and cracks between stones. The wind has changed direction slightly, carrying the scent of burned sugar. You wonder if it came from a bakery like yours, or a confectioner's cart. You pass a wall that still stands. On it is a notice, partly burned. You can read only pieces. Order of evacuate. Assist the watch. You run your fingers over the parchment. It crumbles under your touch. In the distance, you hear a voice calling names. Not shouting, just calling. A woman's voice, firm but tired. She repeats the same 4 names over and over, like a spell, as if saying them enough will bring them back. You turn away. Soon you reach the banks of the Thames. The water looks different now, less like a river and more like a mirror for the sky, dark, rippling, speckled with the reflection of smoke. Boats crowd the edge, many of them overloaded. People still trying to leave, some just sitting watching as if the fire has stolen even the desire to run. You sit by the edge. Dip your fingers into the water. It's cool, blessedly so. You splash some onto your face and feel it cut through the dust. A few others join you, silently, respectfully, forming a quiet line of soot-covered, survivors rinsing the night from their skin. One man speaks. He says the fire began in a baker's house on Pudding Lane. You almost laugh. You want to tell him you were there, that you saw it before it grew, that you smelled the smoke before it, was even fear. But you don't. You just listen. He says the fire has jumped the river in places, that warehouses are burning, that even the tower might be threatened, that some say it's punishment, others say it's politics, others say it's carelessness. You know what it was, a spark, a single ember, a tongue of flame in a quiet night. That's all it took. You stand again. You walk along the bank for a while, shoes still absent, cloak dragging behind you. You pass crates of supplies, tents half built, priests handing out bread, children sleeping in baskets. You realize something as you walk. Survival is not just about running, it's about seeing, about staying awake when everything tells you to close your eyes, about choosing to witness. And you have. You were there. And now you are here. Still walking, still breathing, and the fire for now is behind you. You don't know what time it is. The sun should be overhead by now, but you can't see it. The sky above is thick and low, layered in grey and brown. Smoke drifts like a slow-moving ceiling, softening everything it touches. It has turned the light into something unreal, neither day nor night, but some strange in-between. You look around and realize you haven't truly seen a shadow in hours. Even time seems to have lost its edges. The city around you feels like a dream caught between burning and silence. You've walked so much your knees hum with the rhythm of it, but you can't stop yet. Not here, not near the water, not near the people who still sit waiting for someone else to decide what happens next, so you turn away from the Thames, away from the river's false comfort. You follow a winding road that climbs again toward the northern edge. There's no path anymore, not really, just soft piles of ash, broken fences, melted door handles, and the occasional trail of half-buried footprints. Yours among them now. You wonder how long it'll take before the city smells like something else again. Even the rain would be welcome now. You find yourself hoping for it, for one heavy downpour to douse the last of the embers and rinse the streets clean. But the sky offers nothing, not even wind now, just stillness. Your feet carry you into a quiet row of buildings, narrow, lanes once lined with booksellers and small cloth merchants. The signs above the doors hang crooked or are gone entirely. You step over fallen shelves, scorched linen, the outline of a burnt broom flattened to the street like it was painted there. It's oddly peaceful here, as though the fire passed through already and moved on, leaving only its signature behind. You pause at what must have once been a shop front. The stone walls are blackened, but one window still holds its glass, cracked in a spiderweb pattern, but unbroken. Inside, you see the shadows of what used to be a counter. A bell lies on the floor, scorched but whole. You remember the sound of such bells ringing as customers walked in, their footsteps muffled by woven rugs. You press your hand to the cool stone of the doorway and rest there a moment. There's no sound, no voices, not even birds. You decide to move again. You pass a cluster of carts tipped over in the middle of the street. One has its wheels still spinning in the breeze. Inside another, a burned sack has split open, spilling singed carrots and broken glass. The smallest details hit you harder now. Little things left behind. A spoon stuck in dried porridge. A pair of spectacles folded neatly on a step. A doll without arms, its painted face smiling up from the dust. Everything in this place once belonged to someone. You don't know their names, but their absence feels heavy. Farther ahead, you spot movement. A figure, an older man, sifting through the ruins of what might have been a tavern. He's slow and deliberate, lifting wood beams one by one, setting them aside with care. His back is bent, his hands bare. You walk closer, not to speak, but simply to be near someone else. He doesn't look up. He says, without turning, that his brother owned the place, and that maybe, if he digs long enough, he'll find the signboard. The one with the painted lion. He says it like it matters, and somehow it does. You nod once and keep walking. Soon, the street opens into a small courtyard, surrounded by what used to be a row of townhouses. Only a few remain standing. The rest are hollow shells, their interiors exposed like dollhouses left in the rain. You see a wooden chest cracked open, revealing a mess of clothes turned to lace-like ash. There's a sewing box lying nearby, its spools blackened and tangled. You find a place to sit beneath what's left of a stone archway. It used to be someone's front door. There's still a bit of red paint along the side, just enough to imagine how cheerful it might have looked in the morning sun. You close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out. The silence here is different. Not frightened, not panicked, just hollow. A stillness that seems to ask, what now? You take a sip from your flask. The water is warmer now, but it soothes your throat. The cheese is gone, and your stomach reminds you of it. You fish out one of your coins and turn it over in your fingers. It's slightly bent, probably from the fall when you tripped back near the bakery. You think about food, not just eating, but the idea of preparing it. The scent of rising bread, the crackle of a hot crust, the joy of pulling a loaf from the oven without burning your fingers. For the first time since the fire began, you miss it deeply. Your life before this, its patterns, its quiet repetitions, its smells, even the ones that lingered in your clothes. A crow lands nearby, startling you. Its feathers are soot-coloured. It hops once, pecks at something unseen, and takes flight again. It breaks the spell of stillness. You rise. Just ahead, there's another street. Not yet burned, not entirely. A few homes here remain untouched. The fire skipped them somehow, leapt over roofs, ducked through alleys, but missed this corner. You wonder why. Perhaps it was the wind, perhaps stone walls, perhaps blind chance. You approach a doorway, knock once, no answer. You try the handle. It opens. The house smells like dust and abandonment, but not fire. You step inside, carefully, slowly, respectful of whatever is or was here. The floor creaks underfoot. A chair lies tipped over. A coat hangs on a peg by the door. In the hearth, you see cold ash. You find the kitchen. Small, clean, untouched. There's a loaf of bread, dry and tough, but still whole. A bit of salt pork wrapped in cloth. A jug of water. Someone left in a hurry and didn't return. You hesitate, but hunger wins. You eat, quietly, gratefully. You chew slowly, letting each bite fill more than your stomach. You feel human again. After, you walk to the window and look out. From here, you can see both the destroyed streets behind and the unburned lane ahead. You are standing at the line, between ruin and survival, between what was and what still might be. You don't know how long you'll stay in this house, an hour, a night, a heartbeat, but for now, it holds you. The walls are solid, the roof does not smoke, the floor beneath your feet is still clean wood. You let your body relax, just a little more. In this moment, you are not running. You are not choking. You are not watching the world vanish. You are simply here, breathing and alive. The house is quiet. You wake slowly, as if your body doesn't want to leave the stillness. The floor beneath you is hard, but familiar now. You slept curled beside the hearth, wrapped in your cloak like a question mark. For a long while, you stay there, eyes half closed, listening. Nothing stirs. No footsteps overhead. No creaking doors. No voice calling from another room. Just the soft hush of dust settling, of air shifting through cracks in the wood. It takes you a moment to remember where you are. Not the bakery, not the fields. A stranger's house, abandoned but unburned. You turn your head toward the window. Light filters through the glass, pale and soft. Morning again, maybe, or at least a version of it. You sit up slowly. Your muscles protest, but only faintly. The sharpness of exhaustion has dulled into a deep, even throb. You stretch your legs one at a time, listening to your joints creak like old staircases. Outside, the world is still smothered in ash. The air looks clearer, a little. The sky has begun to reclaim its color, faded blue peeking through the smoke. The clouds drift low, heavy with something unspoken. Rain, maybe. Not yet. You rise and move through the house like a shadow. You don't want to disturb anything, even though the house has long since been disturbed. A plate sits untouched on the table, a scarf draped over a chair. In the bedroom, the covers are folded back, as though someone left in the middle of the night. There's no sign of fire damage inside, only absence. You return to the kitchen and drink what's left in the jug. You break off another piece of bread, still dry, but less so than yesterday. You chew slowly, feeling the strength return in small degrees. When you step outside again, the street greets you like a breath held too long. There's a different kind of quiet now, not fear, not awe, just waiting. You turn left and walk slowly. You pass homes half-burned and others completely untouched. The randomness of it strikes you. One doorway is black with soot. The next is pristine, flowers still wilting in their window box. You pause to touch the petals. They crumble at your fingers, dry and brown. You pass a tavern with no roof. Inside, chairs sit in neat rows, like they're waiting for customers who will never return. A chalkboard still hangs behind the counter. The writing is smudged, but you can make out the price of ale. 3 pennies. You wonder what 3 pennies can buy now. At the edge of the lane, you find another gathering place. A square, wide and open, with a fountain in the centre. The water is trickling still, slow but steady. Around it, people have begun to appear again. Not many, a few at a time. Faces drawn and tired, clothes streaked with grey. Some are sitting, others are standing and staring at nothing in particular. You sit on the edge of the fountain, folding your cloak beneath you. The water laps gently against the stone, a rhythm so soft it makes your shoulders loosen. Across the square, you spot a girl playing with chalk. She's drawn a hopscotch grid on the stone. Her shoes are too big, likely borrowed, but she hops from square to square like nothing's changed. The ashes don't seem to bother her. She hums a song you don't know, to say, her, an older woman braids another child's hair. Their fingers move slowly, carefully, as if the world might break if they go too fast. You take a deep breath. There's something delicate forming here. Not order, not safety, but something close. A kind of stitching. Small threads of normal pulled through the fabric of ruin. You rise and offer to help carry buckets from the fountain. A man hands you one without a word. You lift it carefully and walk with him to a nearby tent. Someone has begun making tea inside. The smell cuts through the smoke, bitter and sharp, and it makes your stomach growl. You don't ask for any. You help stack wood instead. Half-burned planks, scavenged doors, anything dry enough to use again. A woman nearby tears old linen into bandages. She glances at your hands, sees the ash crusted under your nails, and tosses you a damp cloth. You wipe them without a word. The hours pass without urgency. There's no clock here. Time moves by the change in the air, by the shifting light, by the way people breathe. Someone brings word that the fire is moving slower now, that parts of the city are safe, that the king himself rode through the streets, urging people to help tear down houses to block the flames, that even the rich had to run. You think about that, all the walls people built between themselves, status, wealth, titles, burned down just as quickly as timber and cloth. You move with the others, quietly rebuilding, not in the grand sense, not with hammers or bricks, but in small gestures, sweeping ash-filling buckets, carrying food. There's something healing in repetition. You find comfort in the routine, in the warmth of a fire that doesn't destroy but cooks, in the sound of children laughing again, thin, uncertain, but real. You find a place near a barrel and sit for a moment, wiping your forehead. Someone hands you a biscuit. It's crumbly and hard, but you take it gratefully. A voice beside you speaks. He's young, like you, maybe younger. He says he used to work in a candle shop. Says the wax melted on the shelves before the fire even reached them. Says his master ran off with the accounts book and left him behind. You both sit in silence for a while, chewing your dry biscuits. Eventually, he asks if you're going to leave the city. You don't know how to answer. Part of you wants to walk away from all this ruin to find something new, a clean place, a fresh sky. But part of you knows the truth. You're already part of this place now. You've survived not just the fire, but the turning of the city itself. You've watched it fall, and now, maybe you want to see it rise. You tell him. Not yet. He nods. No one seems to know what comes next, but the air is different now, and that means something. When the sun dips lower, orange bleeding into grey, you walk again, just a little farther. You pass broken carts and forgotten hats. You step over strings of melted wax. You watch the shadows stretch longer on the stones. And as you walk, you realize something soft but certain. You're still here. And that matters more than you thought it would. Evening has returned, but it doesn't feel like the ones before the fire. There's no bell marking the hour, no warm candlelight in windows, no scent of roasted meat drifting from taverns. The streets are mostly quiet, tired quiet, not at the frightened hush from days ago, when flames roared through alleyways and smoke turned the world orange. Now the silence has changed. It's not the kind that holds its breath. It's the kind that sighs. You walk slowly through the outer edge of what's left of the city. You're not looking for anything specific. Maybe just a place to sit, or a sound that reminds you of life. Your feet crunch over cinders, soft as powder. A light wind stirs them up in thin spirals. They dance briefly, then fall again. A few figures move here and there, like memories passing through a dream. Some with carts, some with sacks thrown over their backs, some with nothing at all, just the clothes they slept in the night before it all began. You find yourself near a familiar landmark. Or at least what used to be one. It was a chapel, not your chapel, not the one you occasionally passed on feast days. This one stood at the centre of a busy corner, its bell small, its door always open. You used to hear the bell when the bakery's ovens were warm, a sweet, steady ring. Now the bell is gone. The steeple collapsed inward, but the doorway still stands. You step through it. Inside, the space feels strange. No pews, no altar. Just a hollow room with bits of scorched wood scattered across the stone floor. And yet, it's still quiet, wholly in its own broken way. You sit near the wall and let your back rest against what's left of it. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, letting the smells of ash, soot, and something faintly floral pass through you. Someone has left a basket nearby. Inside it, a few apples, slightly bruised but untouched. A folded note tucked beneath them, written in neat but smudged handwriting. Take what you need. Leave what you can. You pick one apple up. Feel the warmth of the skin from the day's heat. You take a bite, slow and mindful, It's tart and sweet, and you hadn't realized how badly you missed the taste of something fresh, something that still grew. As you eat, your thoughts drift again, not to the fire, but to the faces of people, the boy by the butcher's shop, nor the man dragging the cart of books, the child with the half-burned doll, the old woman reading the letter by the fountain. They're etched into you now. You don't know their names, but you remember their silence, their movements, their stillness. All of you swept into the same terrible wind, now wandering through the same quiet ash. You think of the bakery again, how small it was, how ordinary, and how important. It was your world, and now it's gone. But something stubborn in you refuses to grieve it the usual way. You didn't lose a home. You carried it with you, the memory of bread, the smell of it, rising and golden, the ache in your hands from kneading, the sound of your name shouted from the stairwell. You carry all of it, and in that moment, sitting in a broken chapel, eating an apple under a crumbling roof, you realize something very simple and very true. You're not just surviving anymore. You're remembering how to be alive. You finish the apple, toss the core into a pile of leaves, and stand. Your legs feel stronger today. Not healed, but steadier. You walk again. As the sky darkens, lanterns begin to flicker on, not many, just here and there. People lighting them slowly, cautiously. Most are makeshift, oil in bottles, candles in cups. But they glow, and their glow spreads you. Follow the flicker of one until you reach a small square with a fire pit. Someone has built it from fallen bricks, a ring of warmth in a world still cooling. Around it, half a dozen people sit. Some talk, some just stare into the flames. One woman sings very softly, just a tune, no words. It carries like smoke itself. You sit down, a little outside the circle, but close enough to feel the heat. No one asks who you are. No one needs to. There's a kind of understanding now, among those who remain, that names and trades and addresses matter less than they used to. What matters is that you're here, that you're breathing, that you pulled yourself through the fire, one blistered footstep at a time. Someone passes you a cup. It's warm, thin broth maybe. You sip slowly, letting it fill the quiet places in your chest. Someone else offers a crust of bread. Not much, not the kind you made, but enough. You murmur thanks, not loud, just enough to let them know you still have words in you. You all sit like that for a long time. No need for stories. The fire already told them. Instead, you share the silence, a silence that no longer feels empty. Later, a young girl curls up beside the woman who had been singing. Someone drapes a coat over her. The fire pops. A spark jumps. No one flinches. The fear is fading now, or at least it's settling into something manageable. You lie back and let your head rest on your satchel. Above you, the sky is clearer than it's been since the fire began. The stars are returning, faint and blinking. You smile just a little. You close your eyes, and for the first time in many nights, you sleep without holding your breath. You wake up warm, not from a bed, not from a blanket, but from the fire's soft breath and the way the sun, rising somewhere behind the haze, finds your face. You blink slowly, and the first thing you notice is the quiet rhythm of breathing around you. Others still sleep beside the embers. The girl curled up like a cat, her bare toes sticking from under someone's coat. The man who spent the night propped against a barrel, arms folded across his chest. The woman who'd been singing, now wrapped in silence, her face turned away from the light. You sit up gently, careful not to wake them. Your body aches in all, the usual places, shoulders, knees, soles of your feet, but the stiffness feels familiar now. Expected. Your stomach rumbles a bit, but less fiercely than it used to. You've grown used to feeling hungry. You've even learned how to ignore it when the world feels too still for appetite. You rise, brush the ash from your knees, and begin walking. You take the long way around the square. The city stretches quietly ahead of you, tired, broken, but not lifeless. There's a strange beauty in it now, in the way chimney stacks reach like crooked fingers into the brightening sky, in the way the soot paints every building with shadows, softening the outlines of ruin. You pass two boys sweeping debris from the middle of the road with a pair of leafy branches tied to sticks. They're laughing, oddly enough. Their laughter doesn't ring out loud. It bubbles under the breath, short and snorting, like they're not sure if they're allowed to enjoy themselves. You give them a nod as you pass. They nod back, almost solemnly, like you're all part of some strange, unspoken order. You turn onto Milk Street. You recognize it instantly, even though half of it is missing. This was a place where fishmongers once shouted prices at dawn, where a man sold apples from a crooked wheelbarrow and always whistled something out of tune. You remember once running this road with your arms full of flour sacks, nearly tripping on your own feet. Now, it's mostly rubble, but not entirely. A new stall has been built from the skeletons of two burned carts. Behind it, an old woman is setting out a few potatoes and onions on a cracked piece of slate. Her hands are quick, her eyes sharper than you'd expect. She doesn't speak when you approach, just gives you a look. You place one of your coins, the wood, and she hands you a small bag with half a loaf inside. It's stale, but thick and clean. You nod your thanks and tuck it away. You eat it slowly as you walk. Small bites, chewed carefully, each one its own kind of memory. You think of how food used to come wrapped in routine. Now it comes wrapped in quiet. Near the corner of Cheapside, a man stands on a pile of stone and reads aloud from a paper. His voice is dry, but steady. He says the fire has stopped spreading, that the tower still stands, that Parliament is meeting, that King Charles himself has ordered the rebuilding of London, wider streets, stone houses, safer spaces. People listen, but they don't cheer. They nod, shrug. Some fold their arms, others simply turn and walk away. You remain, you don't know why. Maybe because hearing those words, rebuilding, survivors, new London, feels like closing one chapter before the next one even begins. You stay until his voice fades into the sound of someone hammering nearby. The hammering is rhythmic, persistent. You follow it. Around the next corner, a group of men are lifting stones into place. Some shout instructions. Others grunt as they lift. One man turns and calls out for help, and before you can stop yourself, your feet are already moving. You step forward. He looks you up and down, then he points to a pile of bricks. You start lifting. One at a time. Simple work, but real. For hours you help carry stone, stack timber, brush ash away. A woman nearby pours water into cracked mugs and hands them out. You drink one. It tastes like dust, but it's cold. No one speaks much. The rhythm of work becomes the only conversation. Lift, step, place. Again, again. At some point, someone hands you a bit of cheese wrapped in cloth. You take it, gratefully. Your hands are scraped, now. Your clothes soaked with sweat. But you feel stronger than you did yesterday. Your feet feel rooted, your limbs balanced. You help until the sun lowers, until the shadow of the church tower stretches across the rubble like an old arm reaching for home. And then you stop. You sit again, this time on the edge of what used to be someone's windowsill. You eat the rest of the bread you bought. You sip water from a shared jug, and you look around. The fire took so much, but not everything. People are still here, still building, still moving bricks, still folding bandages, still humming lullabies to crying babies under borrowed cloaks, and you're one of them, one of the ones who stayed. Not because you had no choice, but because something in you decided that running wasn't the only way to survive. You remember what someone said the night before, about the fire being a kind of beginning, not just an ending. You didn't understand it then. You think you do now. You rise one last time before dusk fully takes the sky. You dust your hands against your trousers and look east. Somewhere far beyond the rooftops, past the spires and soot, the city waits for you, a different city maybe, one not yet drawn, one still rising from the ash, and you, just a baker's apprentice with burned shoes and a tired smile, are part of its story now. You walk back toward the square. The fire pit still glows. The girl is asleep again. The woman sings something softer than before. And you lie down beside your satchel and let the night cover you gently, like a blanket made of quiet. There is something different in the air today. You notice it the moment your eyes open. It isn't light that wakes you, nor sound, but scent, a trace of something green, something alive. You sit up slowly. Your back murmurs complaints. Your limbs stretch out like the wings of a tired bird. But your nose is already working, searching, pulling in the air around you. There's still ash, still soot. That hasn't gone. But underneath it, threaded through like a whisper, you smell it. Grass, damp wood, even flowers. It's faint, almost a trick, but it's there. You rise and dust yourself off. The morning is grey but softer than before. The heavy curtains of smoke have finally thinned. Here and there, the sunlight filters through. Golden needles stitching the earth to the sky again, and something else. Birdsong. A single chirp, far away, trembles in the silence. Then another answers it. You smile. The fire didn't take them all. Then you walk through the square quietly, stepping over sleeping forms, folded coats, shared breadcrumbs. The girl with the two big shoes has drawn chalk patterns again. Circles and spirals this time. She sleeps beside them now, her head resting on her arm. You move on. Your feet are less hesitant today. They know where they're going, even if your thoughts haven't caught up yet. You pass familiar rubble. The broken arch where you once sat, the barrel where the man read proclamations aloud, the chapel doorway. You touch the frame gently in passing. It feels less like ruin now, more like memory. You turn down a lane where the smell of green is strongest. Ivy has begun creeping over some of the stones. You hadn't noticed it before, too busy watching for falling beams or flames in the distance. But it's there, bold, quiet, patient. At the end of the lane, you find something unexpected, a garden, or shoot the bones of one. It's behind a house, mostly reduced to rubble. But the garden wall still stands. Inside, weeds grow wild around what used to be raised beds. The soil is black with soot, but soft. You crouch down and dig your fingers into it. Warm, still rich, still alive. Your hand brushes something hard beneath the surface. You pull gently. A carrot, tiny, misshapen, a bit singed at the tip, but whole. You laugh, not loud, not mockingly, just a small, startled breath of joy. You place the carrot in your satchel and keep digging, not to harvest, just to feel, to remind yourself that something remains under all of this, something that didn't burn. Footsteps behind you. You turn. It's the boy you saw days ago, scavenging near the butcher's shop. He doesn't say anything. He just watches you. Then slowly, he walks over, kneels beside you, and starts to dig too. The two of you say nothing. The city breathes around you. After a while, he pulls out a small onion, wipes it on his sleeve, smiles. You nod. You sit there together, two soot-covered strangers in a half-dead garden, holding stubborn vegetables like treasure. Eventually, he leaves. You stay longer, not because you need to, but because the silence is kind. Later that day, you wander farther than you have before. You find a street that seems almost untouched. Brick buildings with only soot-blackened walls. Shops with their doors ajar. Windows cracked but whole. You enter one. It was a print shop. You can still smell the ink. That strange, sharp scent of paper freshly pressed. Scattered across the floor are scraps of half-burned posters. Advertisements for shoes, plays, sermons, politics. You step over a toppled shelf and find a bundle of blank parchment. You lift it gently, surprised by how white it still is. You wrap it in cloth and tuck it into your satchel. You don't know why, only that it feels important. A few streets down, a man calls out names, not orders, not warnings, names. You stop and listen. He's organizing a list of survivors, not for the king, not for officials, for families, for those still looking. You walk up and give your name. He nods and marks it down. You ask if there's a list of the dead. He says not yet, that it's hard to count ashes. You walk on. There are notices nailed to boards now, about new streets, temporary housing, water access. You stop and read them carefully. There's something comforting about the words, not their promises, but their existence. Plans mean people believe there's a future. And believing in the future, that's half the work of living. You return to the square by late afternoon. The fire pit is smaller now. Managed, watched. Someone has built a tripod above it and hangs a small pot of stew. The smell is simple. Onions, herbs, maybe barley. It wraps around your senses like wool. You help pass bowls. You sit again by the others. Someone is telling a story about the night of the fire, about how they escaped through a window, dropped into a cart of cabbages, rolled into a sewer, and came out covered in more than just smoke. Everyone laughs, the kind of laughter that doesn't try to hide the fear behind it. It just lets it be. When the story ends, someone else tells another, then another, and suddenly the circle is full of voices, not loud, not hurried, just voices, some hopeful, some bitter, some shaking, all true. You tell a story, too, about the moment the smoke first curled under the bakery door, about the sound the flames made when they caught the wall, about how you ran barefoot through the alley and didn't stop until your legs gave out. You don't mean to. It just slips out of you like steam from a kettle. No one interrupts. No one turns away. When you're finished, the woman with the quiet voice places a hand on your arm. She says nothing, but it's enough. You eat stew. You watch the stars appear again. And for the first time, you don't feel like a stranger in this city. Not anymore. You feel like a thread in the tapestry of it, burnt at the edges maybe, but still woven in. There's a stillness to the city this morning that doesn't feel like absence anymore. It feels like breath, like the pause between heartbeats. You stir beneath your satchel, brush a hand across your face, and stretch slowly. Your legs unfold like old paper. Your joints creak but gently now, like hinges that just needed time. You open your eyes and find the fire pit burned low, but warm. Someone has added coals. The smell is faintly sweet, and for the first time in what feels like a lifetime, you feel rested, not just less tired, but whole. There are fewer people around the square now. Some have left. Some returned to whatever was left of their homes. Some never had one to begin with. But the faces you recognize, the girl with chalk-stained fingers, the man who used to sell onions, the woman with the voice like lullabies, they're still here, and so are you. The city is changing. You can feel it under your feet. You hear it in the voices of those who have begun to plan, not escape, but building, repairing, replanting. A man nearby rolls a wheelbarrow full of bricks past you. The sound of it bumping along the stones is steady, like a drumbeat. Behind him, 2 children carry wood planks, one at a time, too small to manage more. They giggle as they go. You get up, brush the ash from your clothes, and begin your walk. Not wandering now, purposeful, not hurried, but with shape. You head east, where the fire was fiercest, past streets where only chimneys remain like grave markers, tall and hollow, past melted signs and iron gates warped into spirals, past walls where the heat painted its memory into every surface. But now, green things grow through cracks, little vines curling up blackened bricks, sprouts poking through loose stones. Life finding the places where death left space. You cross over toward the bakery ruins. You haven't been back since the first day you fled, not because you were afraid, but because you weren't ready. Now maybe you are. You take the long way, through side streets that smell of damp stone and clean air. The sky is pale and clear above you, washed of its smoke. You walk past what's left of your old street, now more a suggestion than a path. Where signs used to hang, someone has nailed pieces of parchment, Names, messages, hopeful scribbles. You stop and read them. You don't recognize any. But you trace a few letters with your finger anyway, as if touching them will help them reach whoever they're meant for. And then, finally, you're there. The bakery, and what remains? The doorway stands open, but the door is gone. The walls are half collapsed, the roof too, but the oven, stone, old, stubborn, is still there. Blackened, cracked, but whole. You step inside slowly. You remember this place differently. Warm, loud with morning chatter. Flour hanging in the air like fog. Burnt crumbs in every corner. Now, it's dust and silence. But beneath that silence is memory. You kneel beside the oven and run your fingers over the edge. A little soot comes away on your palm. You press it to your chest, just above your heart, without knowing why. And then you laugh, because somehow there's still flour on the floor. Tiny patches shielded from the fire by fallen shelves. Protected by accident, or maybe not. You sit cross-legged in the middle of it all and pull the parchment from your satchel. The bundle you found days ago, still clean, still blank. You spread one sheet over a flat board. Pull out a stub of charcoal from your pocket. And you begin to write, not a recipe, not a letter, just the story of you, of fire and ash, of the soft whistle of the oven when the heat is just right, of how you ran barefoot through a city falling to flame, of how you learned to sleep again, to smile again, to dig carrots from gardens no one remembered, to carry bricks with hands blistered, but steady. You write it all. Not because it needs to be recorded, but because something in you needs to lay it down. As the charcoal smudges your fingertips, you feel something loosen in your chest. Not sadness, not relief. Something else, a kind of peace that asks nothing in return. When the page is full, you fold it gently and tuck it inside your coat. You rise, stretch again, and walk outside. And you stop, because there's something different in the wind. It's carrying a sound, a familiar one, bells, far off but clear, ringing, not for alarm, not for morning, just ringing, like they used to. You look up toward the skyline, where scaffolding now cradles broken steeples, and flags flutter from rooftops. People are already starting to build again. Not grand palaces, just homes, bakeries, taverns, schools, chapels, and this time stone will stand where timber once leaned. Wider streets, better drains, fewer shadows. Maybe it won't happen quickly. It will take time. Years, but you'll be here. You, with your flour-stained boots and soot-dusted heart. Not to build an empire, just to knead the dough. To fix a window, to help a child learn how to hop on one foot again. To smile at the people who stayed and the ones who return, and maybe, someday, long from now, when the fire is just a chapter in a book, and your hands are wrinkled, and your hair is white with flour and age, someone will ask you, were you there? And you'll nod and say, yes, and leave it at that, because the story will already live in the bread, and the bricks, and the way the city still stands when the morning comes.